So, your girlfriend Caroline Dunaway, who was just on the show,
Oh, was she?
yeah, she reviewed some video games and she did very well this episode, better than last episode, and even last episode she did well. But she was recently in a commercial for Poopery, which was
Yeah.
Do you know what Poopery is?
No. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It's a toilet spray for after
Yeah. It creates a viscous layer on the top, much
Whoa.
like an energy shield, so that when we have props. Can I have that branded Bop It, please?
Yeah.
Imagine this is feces coming out of your coming out of your feces hole.
Yeah.
This is Poopery, and it creates a layer of almost oil. It's
So
like
what
smell good oil.
Yeah, so it doesn't penetrate.
So the smell doesn't penetrate past the water. It's a surfactant.
Whoa,
I think
where
is
did that
the,
word come from? Is that a
that's
real
the,
thing?
yeah. That's a
Surfactant?
thing. A surfactant. It resides on the surface.
So she just did the commercial.
Yeah.
Now, in the commercial, she has to tell a poop story where she accidentally pooped herself. Now, with you on the show,
I already know where this is going. You just want to know.
You're not part of, the Pooperies campaign, but you can be part of Grandma's Basement poop campaign. So, Doug Brochu.
Because grandmas, they are notorious for pooping themselves.
Exactly. So, give us your best oops, I pooped myself story.
You just had to go right here. Well, man, I'm trying to think. There's definitely one. I have a few, so I have to go through them. You might be referring to the one time I pooped myself in front of a bunch of cowboys. Is that the one you want?
Yeah, that's
is that the one you want? Where I diarrheaed my pants in front of a bunch of literal real life cowboys. Okay, I guess here I need some Storytime water.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just curious how you got to Cowboys.
Okay,
the whole location is important.
It's a yarn wall. I could have a yarn wall that's like Cowboys at the top, like what's his face from Game Night. Yeah. Which, by the way, if you've not seen Game Night, you should see it only because of that Plemons guy.
With
Jesse Plemons.
Jesse Plemons. He plays
great.
a good neighbor. Yeah. So
anyway, this year, my brother and I were doing a road trip across the United States of America to end here in New England from California. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a brother bonding thing. He had a truck that he rigged it so you could put sleeping bags in the back, and we were going to drive across west to east, stopping at state and national parks along the way, and that's how we would spend the night.
So this thing was rigged out for
this trip. It was tricked out.
Yeah.
And we were tricked out, and our minds were tricked out. And so part of it is stopping in New Mexico. My brother, who he's worked on some movies at this point. He made friends with this animal handler on set who would handle the horses and would bring them in and make sure everyone's being safe. His name was Roberto. Okay. And Roberto resided in the middle of the New Mexican desert. Okay. So my brother and I, he was like, we're going to stop there. We're going to spend the night. It's great. He's on some rancher, someone's land, and he was kind of being the custodian of the land at the time. So he was there. He was mending fences. He was he was being a cowboy. He was being a literal cowboy. He would ride the horses along the fences and mark where they need to be repaired.
In New Mexico.
In the high desert.
Yeah.
And this was a really interesting experience because my brother and I, we got a bit of the history of the land and how it was Native Americans, and then it was the Spanish came there. So there's multiple layers of civilizations that came and went, and it was inhabited, then it wasn't. So there's all these old ghost towns and old mines, old spooky mines that are out there.
This story is added to the top of the list.
Yeah,
for this area.
Yeah, this is the poop story is definitely the most interesting part of the history of this area. Yeah. So my brother and I show up. It's Roberto, and he has another friend there who they're hanging out in the desert. Well, first of all, we went, and when we first met up with them, it was Roberto, his friend, and this other guy named Bill. Now, Bill was another cowboy, except his specialty, he was a farrier, so he shoed horses. And what he was trying to do was he was trying to shoe, I believe it was like a mule, like a donkey. And the donkey was giving him a bunch of trouble, and and he was just cursing this donkey out. Like, he was cursing this donkey out worse than I'd ever experienced in my life. So we started off with that. We went back to camp, and, we were spending the night. It's all a good time. We went to bed, slept in the back of the truck after, a fire, and listening to the coyotes howl, and
just general
cowboy,
stuff.
general desert cowboy stuff. Chris had some whiskey. Like, we had some whiskey.
Oh, how old were you?
I was over 21. Or I was 21.
Freeze.
So the next day, Chris and I get up, and we had planned this whole trip out. So we had a cooler of food that we were going to cook with. But we get to the fire, and the friend is already making breakfast for us, which is really nice. And usually we're all down for that, except there was this like really greasy mason jar next to like the pan, and we're like, "Oh, what's that?" And he was like, "It's rendered pig lard." Oh. And instantly, me and my brother looked at each other like, "No, you don't have to do that. We got food. We got some cooking spray." And he's like, no, it's no problem. And he takes like a cartoonish lump of pig lard and like spreads it on the pan and smears it around. So we're like, all right, well, it's gotten to the point where it would be really, really rude to be like, no, we're going to make our own food. So we eat it. And to his credit, it was absolutely delicious. It's just a bunch of fat. How could it not be? It was a mason jar of homemade rendered pig lard.
That sounds rough still. Oh.
It was delicious. The rough did come later when it was like, the sun's coming up, time to go do things. Like me and Chris went, and they had like these ATVs that they would use.
Oh, that's awesome. That's like techno cowboy.
Yeah. Well, Roberto was on a horse, but for the people who couldn't ride horses, they had an ATV.
Gotcha.
Which me and my brother like shared. We both got on it and like a jet ski.
I know where the story is going.
Okay. So we did that. Like, we went and got some water. We came back. I've not used the bathroom yet, which is odd, because usually, you wake up, you have a few cups of coffee, and you're like,
it's time.
Usually it's time, but it wasn't time yet. And I was like, okay. So we are getting ready to go, and it's literally that like saddle up. Everyone's like. Like, little doggies, yeah. And there's almost like a montage in a movie where they're all getting ready, like ship, ship, ship. Chris jumps on the ATV, is like vroom, vroom, vroom. And then I jump on the back like ready. and at that time I was like, I gotta fart. I'm gonna fart before like we get bouncing. And just, it's the old adage is true, like, never trust a fart, because I tried to fart and a healthy amount of diarrhea came out. And it was
before you had taken off.
Before we had taken off, like, the engine was on, everyone was ready to go, and I was just like, oh no, it happened. And I was instantly like, hey, wait up, everyone. Time out. I just got to go to the bathroom real quick. And everyone's like, I've got these like these stern, like weather-beaten cowboys being like, why didn't you use the restroom before we decided to leave? I was like, oh, it's okay. And I like scrambled down the bank trying to like find a place out, like far enough away for me to feel comfortable using the bathroom,
right,
but not close enough, like where I feel like they could see me. And so I found a place, relieved myself, but then I was like, I have to change my underwear. Like,
you have to get
my underwear. I have to change my pants. I can't go all day with this in my pants. I know we're being cowboys, but that's barbaric. So I went and like scrabbled behind the truck, changed my pants, like tucked my underwear like underneath the wheel of the
so
truck.
no one saw it.
Yeah, and then we went and did our thing. And
no more accidents for the rest of the day.
No more accidents for the rest of the day, luckily.
Do you think it was related to the food that you ate beforehand, or was it just a moment in time that was randomly placed upon you?
That's a good question. You know, the ego inside me says I have a very strong constitution and would have, you know, passed a constitution check if this was a tabletop game. But I think it helped a little bit. I mean, it was outside the means of
your normal diet,
of civilized food. Like it was, but at the same time, I didn't have any. It wasn't any lasting. It wasn't like I wasn't ill the rest of the day.
Right.
That was just a byproduct of like what happened the night before. I think rather, but you know, some rendered pig lard might have like, you know, greased the wheels a little bit.